Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing some fun battles from the Master League, featuring a move update that I honestly don't feel like anyone has talked about, and that is Mud Slap Mamoswine. My Mamoswine I got during the Community Day Classic, and it is actually a Shundo, one of the few Shundos that I have on my account. So today, I'm going to be running it with Mud Slap. Mud Slap, of course, is now arguably one of the best fast moves in the game, so I'm excited to see what it can do with Mamoswine. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out if Mud Slap Mamoswine is worth it in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a 1 lead from Mamoswine leading into Shadow Rhyperior. Look at the Mud Slap go. Opponent is going to switch out into Xerneas, but I'm more than happy to stay in here and play this out with the Mamoswine. Mamoswine, of course, is very, very weak to fire types like Ho-Oh, so I am forced to have 2 water types in the back to cover for that weakness. Here, I'm able to get a nice catch of a close combat and get a waterfall farm down, but in comes Palkia. I should be running Hydro Cannon on this Primarina. Unfortunately, I only have 1 Elite Charge TM right now, and I don't like going below 1. So this team, if you try it, should be run with Hydro Cannon. I just don't have enough Elite Charge TMs to where I could use one. I am going to make it to another Disarming Voice. Even though the Waterfalls are doing less than nothing, opponent actually makes a very nice catch as they're able to secure a catch onto Rhyperior, but I can fire off the Avalanche, KO Rhyperior, in comes Palkia, and these Mud Slaps do add up. I'd be very curious to see what a Shadow Mamoswine could do with Mud Slap. I don't have the Shadow Hundo. That is a Pokemon that I had the regular Hundo, but I've never got a good Shadow. But either way, we can just bring in Palkia, and the opponent will resign. Picking up a good lead in the next match, Mamoswine vs Zygarde. Opponent switches into a Dusk Mane Necrozma. Oh no, trainer, that is so unfortunate. I will commit a shield. They're actually running Iron Head. It doesn't look like I'm quite going to be able to get the farm down, so instead, I'm actually going to catch an Iron Head onto my Palkia and save so much energy on the Mamo. Even if you are running Mud Slap, due to the fact that you get these avalanches pretty quickly, you are still able to beat Pokemon like Zygarde, and you can actually win the 0s and 1s versus Yveltal, despite the fact that your fast move is double resisted. I am going to get to land that Spatial Rend that does so much damage. Opponent is forced to fire off energy. From here, I'm expecting they're going to look to switch out instantly. So, in order to not be a turn behind, I'm just going to bring in Waterfall Primarina. In the back, they have Landorus. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to the next match, getting Mamoswine into Florges. Florges did get an update with this season, as Fairy Wind now does extra damage. However, due to its lack of coverage, I'd still rank it behind Xerneas and Zacian in terms of Master League playability. High horsepower does do incrementally more damage here. However, it's a lot less efficient of a move, so I will just go for the Avalanche and look for the farm down. Opponent ends up throwing on alignment, so they do give me a Mud Slap for free. I'm just going to shield and get a very nice farm down. Opponent is going to aggressively switch out into Dawn Wings. I will fire off the Avalanche at the Dawn Wings. Dawn Wings is going to no shield. Aggressively save switching a Dawn Wings in a Yveltal meta is definitely a choice for sure. I'm just going to let this go. If they KO Primarina, that's fine by me. I'm going to try and win the game with Palkia. Palkia energy is often very, very valuable, and in the back, my opponent has their own Rhyperior, so it turns out that preserving that Waterfall Primarina would have actually been very, very helpful, but the good news is I still have another water type to work with. They will fire off some energy. I have a call to make. Are they going to go for the Breaking Swipe? They do go just for the Breaking Swipe. I'm going to fire off another Aqua Tail. Opponent is going to be using that Final Protect Shield. Now the question will be, when do they throw? I expect they overfarm, but they don't. They just throw instantly. The Breaking Swipe is going to connect. I have to make the move. I try and farm the Florges down, but I just cannot. And unfortunately, we do lose that game. We move to the next match, picking up a Core Breaker lead, Mamoswine versus Xerneas. Considering I have Palkia in the back, I need to stay in. Odds are they double close combat on 7, so I am going to click my Avalanche, so this way I can guaranteed get a shield back. Xerneas can normally tank an Avalanche, but at -2 defense, they are definitely not tanking it. So I'm going to fire off the Avalanche, grab the shield from the opponent, and they're just going for the back-to-back close combats. I am more than happy to shield up here. The Mud Slap is going to go through. Opponent is choosing to stay in. These Mud Slaps doing so much damage, but my opponent survives the farm down with 1 HP. I'm forced to switch out and reveal that I have Waterfall. That's actually a really smart play by my opponent. They stayed in to check the fast move, so this way they're also not switch locked. I have Disarming Voice and Moonblast on this Primarina. Disarming Voice doesn't do a lot, so I decide to full send the Moonblast, expecting my opponent is going to try and call a Disarming Voice, but they end up shielding, and that's a big problem. If I went for double Disarming, I could have got there, but instead I fall just short of the Disarming Voice. They have so much energy on their Palkia, and I'm in trouble. I'm going to bring in my own Palkia, just fully sacrifice it, and try and sweep with the Mamo in the back. Oh my goodness, this might be winnable. They have Rhyperior. Rhyperior is going to get one-shot by an Avalanche. Avalanche for the Palkia, but the Palkia had too much energy, winning charge attack priority, denying the energy, and my mismanagement in that mid-game unfortunately cost me the win. We move to the next match, Mamoswine versus Yveltal. Yveltal is going to switch out into Dawn Wings, and again, I am floored that people are still aggressively safe-switching Dawn Wings in an Yveltal meta. I do decide to respect it with a shield, and I get baited with a Dark Pulse. That is very unfortunate. I'm going to look to farm up and fire off the Aqua Tail. This will come very close to knocking out. Opponent will actually commit the Protect Shield, so I'm more than happy just to double shield and farm all the way down. My energy is very valuable into Yveltal, as Yveltal, not really a big fan of Spatial Rends. So the opponent, are they going to be bringing back in the Yveltal? They are not. They're going to bring out Florges, and this is a little bit tricky. I don't really want to pivot back out of this matchup, even though I really, really would like to. Like, ideally, I would love to save this energy, but trying to analyze how the game could go, I don't think it's going to go well for me if I give up Switch. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let Palkia go and bring in Mamoswine. The reason being is I need energy on this Mamoswine to be able to outpace Yveltal. Moonblast is going to do massive damage. There's the switch. I look at the top right to see the typing change. I can fire off Avalanche, and now I can bring in Waterfall Primarina, and they cannot make the 2 Oblivion Wings that they'll need to win this game. Oblivion Wing number 1 is going to do substantial damage. Primarina does not have great stats, but I'm going to be able to make it to a Moonblast, and this will definitely be game over for my opponent. So Moonblast picks up the knockout, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, Mamoswine versus Yveltal. Okay, same lead as last game. This time the opponent is actually going to choose to stay in. Now, the awkward thing about this matchup now is you have no fast move pressure. I can win the 0s and the 1s, however, Yveltal is probably just going to double shield. So I'm going to aggressively pivot out, preserving the Mamoswine, saving it for later, and bringing in Palkia because I know 1 Oblivion Wing will not KO. Oblivion Wing is going to do some pretty substantial damage though. They're firing off another Oblivion Wing, and I will commit the shield. Opponent going to switch out into a Tapu Lele. Tapu Lele, of course, now running Astonish. I fire off the Aqua Tail. That's going to be no shielded by the Tapu Lele. I'm able to get the Tapu Lele quite low with these back-to-back Aqua Tails, though. The Aqua Tail is going to connect. Aggressive switch to the Mamoswine, but I just cannot get the farm down. Tapu Lele able to hang on and connect with the Nature's Madness. I am expecting that my opponent could potentially try for a Sucker Punch farm down with Yveltal, and that's exactly what they're going to do. I'm going to bring in Primarina in the back. It's going to be a Shadow Rhyperior. Oh my goodness. Shadow Rhyperior getting shredded by the waterfalls, but they make a Rock Wrecker, and that forces my shield. This game will come down to a catch. I have to get this prediction right. I predict they're going to overfarm. So I'm going to farm up. And I waited the turn, expecting that they would do 1 more, and then I could catch, but they just throw instantly. And unfortunately, without getting that prediction right, I cannot win the game. We move to the next match, another Tapu Lele, leading Mamoswine into Tapu Lele. These Mud Slaps add up quite a bit, but so do the Astonishes. And this is when I learned that Mamoswine does lose charge attack priority versus Tapu Lele. Mamoswine gets to mid 3700s in combat power, so it's not doing bad in that regard by any means, but its stats really don't stand up amazingly to a lot of other Master League Pokemon. We're going to see a catch onto Palkia. Palkia going to absorb the Avalanche, and I'm going to bring in my own Palkia because I know that they're only going to make an Aqua Tail, and that's very fine, and Energy Lead on Palkia will usually take you pretty far in a lot of games. My opponent is pretty close to a move on Lele, but they do not have one, which means I'm going to get to guaranteed land an Aqua Tail there. Opponent brings in Rhyperior, And honestly, they should have brought in the Lele, but I think at this point they just knew that they were in a very difficult position because with this massive energy lead that I have in the Palkia, I make double Aqua Tail. And that Aqua Tail just does way too much damage. They're forced to fire off energy. And yeah, this is a game where I could very comfortably clean up with the Primarina in the back. I bring in the Mamoswine. In comes Tapu Lele. And it turns out I won't even need the Primarina as the opponent resigns the match. We got Mamoswine versus Meloetta in the next match. Meloetta, a very interesting Pokemon, as it's going to be spamming out these Psyshocks. The Quick Attack Psyshock combination is incredibly, incredibly strong. Opponent is going to send in a Waterfall Primarina, and here, honestly, in my view, I make a bit of an error. Even though I am double resistant to Waterfalls, I still think that I would have been better off if I brought in my own Waterfall Primarina, because I'm going to have to give up way too many shields. And if you give up way too many shields, then, unfortunately, I'm probably going to get hit with that nuke move on the Meloetta. We don't know what it is yet. Could be Hyper Beam, could be Thunderbolt, I believe. There's a couple moves that it can get. Here the opponent is going to try and go for a catch onto Dialga, and 2-shield Dialga in the back is quite scary. I'm able to land the Spatial Rend. My thought process here is that I can go for an Aqua Tail and just farm down. Odds are they're probably just throwing away the Dialga, but I want to get as much energy as I possibly can on this Palkia. In hindsight, maybe I should have just double Spatial Rended and got rid of it, because now I'm pretty low. I have energy on the Mamo. If I can land this Avalanche, I'm actually in a really good spot here. So Avalanche is going to be shielded. They switch out into the Primarina, switch timers up, and I'm forced to use the Avalanche here, and that is a big complicating factor in this game, because Meloetta, I still don't know the nuke move. I'm very close to an Aqua Tail. I should be able to make an Aqua Tail. So it just comes down to, can I make a move on Primarina, or can I Waterfall it into a range where Aqua Tail will KO, and they have Thunderbolt as well. You know what? That's Dragon Breath plus Aqua Tail range. I should be good here. So Meloetta is going to pick up the knockout. I can bring in the Palkia, make it to the Aqua Tail. I click on it, but the Quick Attack registers, and I lose the game. We move to the next match, leading Mamoswine against Zacian. This matchup is better than it has been previously because almost every Zacian, at least at high Elo Master League, is not running close combat. They're running Wild Charge and Play Rough. So I will shield because on the off chance you run into one that does actually have close combat, you're going to be a very sad Mamoswine, so I will respect it. They revealed that they don't have it. My issue, however, is they're actually able to make another move if I farm down. So I'm forced to throw the Avalanche on a very low health Pokemon. In comes Yveltal, and I'm just going to pivot out into Palkia. As Palkia can absorb an Oblivion Wing, and this Dragon Breath damage is quite valuable onto Yveltal. Yveltal is going to land the Oblivion Wing. They continue to stay in, and I will fire off the Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail not going to be enough to knock out. Palkia, in general, does have a pretty favorable matchup into it. Opponent tries to snipe with Rhyperior, but instead, they let me get an Aqua Tail. They're forced to shield, and this poor Rhyperior, man. This poor Rhyperior is just getting torn to shreds by Primarina. I will commit the shield. They go for the Breaking Swipe, hoping for the debuff. They get the debuff, but it's not going to matter, and they will concede the match. Terrible lead, Mamoswine into Ho-Oh. I save switch into Palkia, and my opponent is going to respond with Dialga. I do have a nice energy head start, thanks to the fact that the Ho-Oh did throw the Incinerate before switching. I'm going to go for an Aqua Tail bait. The bait is successful, and now I can get a Spatial Rend, but my opponent is going to throw energy to deny that. I decide to shield, because I'm thinking, you know what? I'm going to try and set up my Pokemon in a 1-0 shield situation. And that's what I'm going to get. I am going to have to give up that shield, however, when I bring in the Mamoswine. But Mamoswine's energy, I mean, Avalanche does a lot to Ho-Oh. So this is actually not looking terrible for me. I'm going to get a very nice farm down. In comes the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh animation suddenly looking very odd. They have to throw instantly. If they don't, I can outpace and land the Avalanche, and they do. The opponent, knowing Mudslap Mamoswine counts, they pick up the knockout with the Brave Bird in the back. It's going to be a Zacian, and I cannot win this game because what is almost every Zacian in the format running? Wild Charge. And Primarina is not tanking a super effective Wild Charge. He pick up a great lead in the next match. Mamoswine versus the Dusk Mane. And again, this is where those Mud Slaps are so nice. Opponent throwing on alignment, giving me an entire Mud Slap for free. They're going to bait with a Dark Pulse. And here, I overfarm as much as I can, and I'll throw the Avalanche right before they get the Dark Pulse. Avalanche is going to be no-shielded. They fully let it go. They bring in Shadow Rhyperior, and look at the Mud Slaps. Mamoswine putting in a tremendous amount of work. The Avalanche is going to be shielded. I make another Avalanche, and Mamoswine is just taking over in this game, forcing both shields from the opponent. In comes the Primarina, and I think I just let the Primarina go and trust in one shield Palkia. Opponent baits with a breaking swipe. It's a Yveltal in the back. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. And now, let's talk about the Mudslap Mamoswine experiment. To start off with, my first set with the team was very, very negative. However, when the dust settled after the end of my sets, I was about even on the day. So overall, as I got more comfortable with it, I was able to get a lot more wins. Now, I do think that I did have some flaws when it came to the team building process. I think that pairing up Mudslap Mamoswine with bulkier options in the back would probably work a little bit better. Because a lot of the time, Mamo, since it doesn't have the stat product of some of the legendaries, you're going to want to use your shields there. And Pokemon like Primarina and Palkia also really enjoy having a shield or two to hide behind. So in the grand scheme of things, if I tried it again, I would probably run slightly bulkier options in the back and just making sure that those bulkier options did very well into Ho-Oh. Now, I do think Mudslap is a genuine upgrade on the Mamoswine. Especially, granted, I don't have the Shadow, but we've seen from Rhyperior how much Shadow Mudslap can do. I think this Pokemon could do very, very well as a good core breaker in the upcoming Master Premier meta. Just due to the fact that even though you're not as strong into the Flyers, you still beat most of the Flyers because the Mudslap energy generation is pretty fast, but the Mudslap fast move pressure is the big advantage here, especially into something like a Rhyperior, or actually being able to beat Necrozma, Dusk Mane, which it previously wasn't able to do. So overall, this is definitely a nice upgrade. It a little bit went under the radar because there was another ground type in Rhyperior that can do a lot of what it does, but slightly better. But considering how strong ice damage is into this meta, I do think Mudslap Mamoswine definitely has a niche. It'll just take a bit of a bulkier backline to really let it shine. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.